Mm. All right. Welcome. It's a new week, new time. This is the Western Star Movie Podcast. Um, I'm gonna see myself. Sometimes I feel like this side would be better. I don't know. Whatever. So today it's a new week, Thanksgiving. So most of the shows here are not going to be performing, but my show, this will be the last one. Well, couple last ones for this semester. We got some good stories today. The Marvel suffers the worst MCU drop in history of the MCU, possibly even in superhero history. The Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes opens to mixed reviews and a underwhelming start for the franchise. Should the prequel series continue, if they decide to do another one, Wish becomes Disney's second rotten film in the history of their lifetime, only being best by Chicken Little. Will it make enough money to perform well? And a bunch of other reviews to set the tone for this week. All of that is happening right now. So, and of course, this is some of the things I will say today are subjective opinions. They're not the right opinions, but I mean, they're opinions nonetheless. So, you know, whatever. But yeah. So, with that said, let's get into the podcast. Hunter West, this is the Western Star Movie Podcast. Let's get into the video review or the talk about of the week. And let's get into it. So, we talked about last weekend how the Marvels unfortunately underperformed badly. It was clocking in to become maybe the MCU's lowest opening for a film. And after watching the movie, it became clear that yes, it was the lowest opening for the MCU with $46 million. Now again, everybody would kill to have a $46 million opening, or even better, a $58 million opening. But this is not those people. This is the MCU, and so the majority of the people at the MCU are like, "Wait, what? This is bad." Now, I believe I said it last weekend. I said the movie was not good, and I still stand by it. Haven't seen it twice, and I did say in my review, listen, the reviews, the fact that nobody cares about the Marvels, this movie is going to have a significant drop like none other. And a drop it did. Because as of right now, the Marvels currently holds the record for the steepest drop in a second weekend film for an MCU title in the history of the MCU for 20, I believe it was 15 years, with a 77% drop. That's not a 50%, not a 60, not even a 70, a 77% drop with just 10.2 million dollars in its second weekend. Now, originally, the lowest opening, the steepest second weekend for the MCU actually came in earlier this year at Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania with 69.9%. And Ant-Man Quantumania was actually a better film than the Marvels. So here, put it like this. The MCU has always been a franchise of rewatchability. Obviously, so in the past couple of years of the pandemic and regrouping, it hasn't been the case. I mean, Thor: Love and Thunder was a massive drop, went from $144 million to I believe it was like $46 million. And it placed number one in 2 consecutive weekends. Even Eternals did that. Now, Black Widow didn't have a steep opening, but it dropped, but at least it wasn't bad. This is opened to the lowest opening for an MCU film and is now the record for the biggest drop, 77%. When you have a movie that suffers a 77% drop, you got to just think to yourself, yeah, this movie is going to bomb badly. Um, and how about put it this way? The Marvels is looking like it's going to finish its domestic total less than the opening weekend of the first film in general, which was $153 million. That's how bad the domestic box office for this movie is. It's going to finish under the opening weekend of the first Captain Marvel at 153, meaning this could be the worst MCU grosser of all time. I mean, it's not only that, it's catastrophic, it's underwhelming, it's disastrous, it's bombish, it's this movie's going to underperform. That's how bad it is. And it's even worse than some of the other ones that we've seen. I mean, this year we saw The Flash with a 72% drop, and then Black Adam with a 59% drop, almost a near 60. And there's only one MCU film prior that posted a third weekend as low as the Marvel's second weekend, which was The Incredible Hulk back in 2008 with a third frame of 9.5. Imagine if this movie opened less than 9.5 and it would have been more of a disaster. But you talk about hello Beefer. You talk about like the fact that this is a movie that was never anticipated, nobody really wanted. And now you talk about, well, listen, guess what? Nobody wants to see this movie. And it clicked in my mind that this is the MCU losing faith in audiences because audiences are sick and tired of mediocre content. They want to see great things, which is why it's so good that in 2024 we're having one MCU film and then they can focus on helping out editing and writing the next installments in 2025. The only problem is there's so much in 2025 that it's like, well, what are you going to do? This to me has the Alice in Wonderland kink, where the first movie opened strong and it made $1 billion for Disney, and then the second movie came out was even worse, and it managed to underperform and bomb in the box office. That's what this movie's going to do. It's the Alice in Wonderland treatment. That's why you don't see another Alice in Wonderland movie because, hey, the last film sucked and bombed badly, which I feel like is going to happen with the Marvels. So, honestly, I'm not surprised that this happened. But, you know, look, at the end of the day, it really just came down to the fact that the reviews were not good. The shows that people wanted to watch were not good. It's a homework movie. The trailers just didn't sell it. You don't know what the film's about. After watching the movie, you still don't know. I still have no idea what the movie's about. But it's not one of the worst films I've ever seen this year, but it's not a good film. I mean, it's not. So, overall, yeah, Marvels suffers the biggest second weekend drop of an MCU film. And what's interesting about that is it could also be the biggest drop in superhero history. That's how bad this is looking. This is looking like it could have a historic drop. And it's not looking good. Anyways, question is for you guys. What do you think about this? Should Marvel be shaking? Should they be like I can't say the word, but should they be doing the bed or whatever? Should they be frustrated? Should they be nervous? Like, hey, this is a big, big problem. Whatever you think, whatever. Because I don't know. I don't know if you can comment on these videos. I don't know if you can edit in the stream, whatever. I was confused. Exactly. That's pretty much what the film was about. Thank you. And speaking of the box office, the film it managed to lose to in its opening weekend was a film called 100 Days The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Now, look, I haven't seen the film yet because honestly, I'm just going to give you the FYI or the MIO. I don't care. I honestly don't care about a new Hunger Games movie like I did with the Fantastic Beasts movies. That was like a new Harry Potter film after 5 years. No, it's been 8 years since a Hunger Games movie came out, and the trailers look different. Until I found out it was directed by the same guy who did the last three Hunger Games films. And okay, projections for this movie started out, and they said, okay, it's looking to shape up to be a healthy $50 million opening weekend, which would be okay. And movies would kill to have a $50 million opening weekend and open to $100 million globally. Except when you look at the fact that every single Hunger Games movie before this opened over $100 million, which, make no mistake, that is a huge drop. But whatever. So projections finally came out, and the Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, has officially opened to the lowest opening in the franchise at $44 million. Now, I haven't seen the film yet. I'm going to do a review on it hopefully next week because why not? But there's a couple things to talk about. Now, look, again, much like the Marvel's opening weekend, many films would kill to have a $44 million opening weekend that maybe are low budget and would love to have that. But this is not a film. This is not any of those films. This is a Hunger Games movie, and it cost them $100 million to make. Now, you may think to yourself, well, that's actually a pretty good number. It's $44 million. It opened over globally 99. What's the problem? Well, there's a couple reasons why I think the film could have benefited more, and here are some of those reasons. Number one is the fact that, listen, when you're reviving a franchise, you have to make sure that the people that were fans of the franchise are still caring at this point. Because that's what happened with the Fantastic Beasts movies. It opened low. The franchise, the movies kept opening lower and lower. And at a point now, they're stopping with the Fantastic Beasts movies for good because, let's face it, nobody cares about these movies. They're not Harry Potter. They never will be Harry Potter. Even though if they're in the same universe, they're not Harry Potter. And a reason is because everybody stopped caring because they ended the movies like 10 years ago. And now, 5 years later, after the events of Deathly Hallows Part 2, which came out in 2011, 2016, they released the Fantastic Beasts movies. And the third one, I'll be honest, was not really good at all, and it underperformed as well. So when you talk about like prequels, this is the problem with prequels. They're starting to get ahead of themselves, and they think like, well, we can spawn more prequel movies and just make up stories. I mean, that's what they did with the Fantastic Beasts movies. And I fear that's what's going to happen here. They're going to open with more movies, and it's going to get worse and worse as it goes. Because think about it. The last Hunger Games movie to come out was in 2015 with Mockingjay Part 1. And even that movie opened to the lowest in the franchise at 108, which is I mean, if your lowest in the franchise at that point was 108, you're not really doing anything bad. But it ended up becoming the lowest grosser at 670. Again, if that's your lowest grossing film, that's fine. But it's a different type of movie state now. And the film opened less than half of what the lowest Hunger Games movie opened to. It opened less than half, which tells you a lot of things. And like I said, you're reviving a franchise years later. So fans may not be like, "Oh, there's a new Hunger Games movie coming out. Oh, well, I haven't read the book yet. Oh, I didn't know there was a new one. I don't know if I'm interested in that." Whatever. Number 2 is the fact that maybe actor strike was still going on and people were not really supporting it and the marketing just wasn't as good. I mean, now if you read the books and you know this movie story, you know, like, okay, Coriolanus Snow is the one that started the Hunger Games and he's going to do some evil things. And it's like, oh, that's the start of his story. So you're constantly thinking, like, okay, you know what's going to happen if it's a prequel and you've seen the rest of the films. So why do I have to watch this movie? It doesn't serve a purpose, which I think is what's going through a lot of people's heads. Or the best reason and the most simple reason I did, and the most simple reason that I can say why this movie I think opened to a very low opening weekend is who cares? Who cares there's a Hunger Games prequel out? Much like the Marvels underperformed, who cares that these two movies even came out? I mean, I didn't see the Hunger Games movie, but I saw the Marvels because of course it's a Marvel film. But I don't think I've been invested in a Hunger Games movie in years because the last two films, and I've watched the Hunger Games, the four films leading up to Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. The last two movies ended up sucking because they didn't know how to end out the story. Now, look, you can argue like, well, actually, no, because the Harry Potter movies did really well, but that was in a different era. Okay, that's when they knew how to make good young adult movies. And they just kept doing the same formula and people got sick and tired of it. So it's no surprise. And plus, it's a prequel. What do you expect? Prequels don't do great. They never do great. And now look, it's better that I feel like this movie, a lot of people say it's better than some of the Hunger Games movies out there. I wouldn't say that. I mean, I've heard some people say, well, it's not great, but it's not awful. It's very much what a lot of people say is it's just an okay film. It's not an important movie by any means, but it's not a bad one. I will check it out. I might because I don't know if this movie is going to be available on streaming, and it is the number one movie in the world right now until Wish or Napoleon come out, which we'll get into in a little bit. But you're talking about movies that are just kind of like, why are you making these films? And then they perform like this, and you're like, well, you're shaking. The people are shaking their heads. It's like, how could this happen? This should have opened to more than $50 million. I mean, because nobody cares. You've waited a long time to release this movie, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh, why did you open? Why $44 million? Nobody cared about this movie. That's the truth. And then some of the other people would be like, well, there's people out there that just don't like Rachel Zegler because she made comments about a Snow White movie. It's like, no, it's because nobody cares about an Hunger Games prequel. And after watching the film, I don't think a lot of people will still care. Anyways, I don't think it's going to have a steep drop like the Marvels, but I mean, Thanksgiving's coming on the corner, you know, whatever. All right. With that out of the way, let's get into this, shall we? One of the movie this year for Disney, it's been interesting. Disney has celebrated their 100-year anniversary. It's been 100 years in the company, and this year they put out things that I would say a lot of people liked. In terms of theatrical, uh, not really. Um, let's talk about the things that they did. So the Marvels is the Marvels and it's going to underperform. Indiana Jones 5 and a Dial of Destiny, remember that movie? That bombed badly because of a $300 million budget. Um, let's see. Quantumania was disastrous. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is a saving grace. And of course, you have The Little Mermaid, which I think is a good movie. I don't care what people say. And then you had Elemental, which opened badly, and then had Great Legs and became a big success. And also Haunted Mansion, which I completely forgot came out, that ended up underperforming as well. Because again, much like the Marvels and 100 Games prequel, who cares? And most of the things that they've been putting out for their 100-year anniversary have been disappointing bombs. Well, they have a new film coming out this Thanksgiving, this week, called Wish, which opens Wednesday, Tuesday, if you want to count prequels, but whatever. And I'll just come out and say it. I didn't even know this movie was coming out. Saw the trailer and I was like, oh, that's cool. It doesn't grab me anymore as I thought it would, because now we're talking about Disney and Walt Disney Animation. You know, over the last few years, they have not had a great hit. Since Frozen 2 making $1.4 billion, like, they have not had a good hit at all. Strange World was a huge, catastrophic failure. And Kanto was good, but it didn't make as much money as it did. However, Wish has come out and they projected like weeks ago. And if I can bring up the article right away, hopefully, um, let me see. Hold on. Come on. Here. Weeks ago, they have said that Disney's Wish is looking to eye a $50 million debut over the 5-day holiday stretch, which would be interesting. If it hits its projection, it would rep the biggest original animated opening since 2017's Coco, which did 72.9 million over its 5 days and did pretty well opening weekend. However, I think it's going to underperform again. This might be the third time that Disney Animation Studios, once again, has a movie that underperforms. Because the reviews have come out for Wish, and for the first time since Chicken Little in 2002, Disney Animation Studios. Hold on. On a minute. Wait. Has a rotten movie. Has a movie that's officially a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes. Since 2004, Chicken Little, which I actually think is a good film. This movie has officially debuted to the second lowest rated Disney animation film. Not this Disney Pixar, but Disney film. This will hurt this movie to oblivion. Now, there have already been early access showings. I think Saturday, November 18th, there was already early access showings. I didn't see if a lot of people went. I don't know if it was packed. I didn't go to the movies at all this week. I watched a lot of streaming movies, but what I can tell you right now is the fact that this is catastrophic for this movie. And again, we have another film that costs way too much money. $200 million for this movie. Honestly, I barely can tell you I am going to see this movie. In fact, I'm not reviewing it. I have no interest in this movie. I never had interest. I thought the trailers looked like a very standard story, and that's it. I am not interested in watching this movie. I'm just not. I don't know. And I mean, for children out there, they're gonna be like, "This movie's actually pretty good, mom. It's a good movie. It's so pretty to look at. The visuals are on top, and the songs are so cool." But that's not. We're not kid. I'm not a kid. I'm a grown ass adult. And to simply put it into numbers, when you have a Rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes and your movie opens in a couple of days, you know the movie's not going to be seen by a lot of people. Now, if it opens to the $50 million over the 5-day weekend, that would be a pretty decent number. And it would have to have legs, but I just don't know if this movie can break even over the $200 million budget. I just don't think so. So, question is for you. What do you think about this? Do you think Wish is going to be a moneymaker or a money breaker? Whatever. All right. With that out of the way, let's get into the quickie reviews for this weekend. And we have, let me see, one, two, three, four reviews. A moneymaker. That is the Wish is going to be a moneymaker. Here's the thing about that and the way the box office works is that if a movie opens over, if a movie makes under its budget, it's considered a financial disaster. If a movie opens over, but it doesn't make, like, let's say the movie opens, like, makes overall $280 million, it would still be identified as a bomb. If it makes $300 million, it would still be a bomb. So you're probably looking at a movie that roughly has to make around 400 to 550 million dollars just to break even. And you know what? And here, yeah, you know what? That's the thing. You're an elementary school teacher. My kids are talking about it right now. Again, it is all about the kids. And listen, there are kids movies that actually have done really well, but the thing is that Disney's animation studio for 2 years in a row have tried to do that and have not done that. I mean, Strange World was a colossal failure. And I mean, Encanto was good, but like I don't even remember that movie. But a lot of the box office nowadays depends on good reviews, early buzz, and if the movie is going to be good enough for people to talk about. That's why a lot of movies this year, some of them you thought were going to be money makers ended up being money breakers. So, I don't know. I think that's just me. I'm pretty sure I'm not the target audience, but whatever. And if it comes out on Disney Plus in December, the movie's considered a money breaker because that's what Strange World did. If the movie opens in like February or January, then the movie may have made a lot of money. But listen, it all depends on who's going to go see the movie on what days. If the movie makes money, then Disney might be saved. Otherwise, I just don't know. And listen, kids are going to rush to the theaters, but it's going to take a lot of kids to go and see this movie. And I keep looking around my local area to see how many seats are taken sometimes for the movies, and not a lot is taken. And depending on where you live, not a lot in New York has been taken. So there's that. So, with that down, let's move on to some of the reviews that have come out that I want to talk about. The first one of them is a film called Old Dads. Old Dads is a Netflix comedy that stars Bill Burr. It's directed by Bill Burr and is pretty much about these three old dads that are, living life and they realize they're getting old and parenting's a little bit harder than they used to. And so they're getting reevaluated at their jobs by this young teen or millennial to find a guy to make him famous. all around, and just it's pretty much a Bill Burr comedy. And I'm gonna be honest, I thought this movie was going to suck because the scores have not been pretty for this movie, and I ended up enjoying a lot more than I did. Is it a great movie by any means? No. Is it a flawless movie by any means? Not really. But I thought the movie had a lot of funny scenes, and I think the movie is overall a good time. Now, make no mistake, there are some problems with this movie. Number one, some of the jokes don't land. I think it goes off a little bit too silly. There's certain plot holes and subplots that really don't amount to anything if you think about it. And it, there's a scene in the movie that really just is like a ripoff that just feels so unearned and so out of left field that I can't really talk about it because it's kind of a little bit weird and off-putting. So that, but um, overall, I enjoyed the film. I wouldn't say it's a great movie by any means, but I enjoyed the film. Um, so I give this movie, if I give it a thumbs up or thumbs down, I'm giving it a thumbs up. I'll go B minus 6.5 out of 10. Next, let's move on to Pain Hustlers. Now, this is a movie I managed to miss during the month of October, and it came out where it's directed by David Yates, who, speaking of the Hunger Games prequel, it's directed by the guy who did the Harry Potter movies and then all of the three prequel Fantastic Beasts movies. Stars Andy Garcia, stars Emily Blunt and Chris Evans, and it's pretty much about this drug thing that happened and this mother who was down on money, who got a job selling prescriptions to people and doctors, and they became rich and famous, and it was apparently a true story. And much like that, I haven't heard great things about it. Having watched the film, I think this movie's awful. I think this movie's bad. It's it's just a boring, slow drama thriller that goes nowhere. Now listen, I don't know the story. I don't know if this is a how it went, but from the movie that was given to me, um this was not really that good of a film. Here the thing I notice about this movie is that there's constant editing choices that really put me off. Like, there's a scene in which a girl gets arrested and it's like very like big and open, and then later on, there's a conversation happening and they bring up the event, and then it cuts to the girl getting arrested again, and then immediately cuts back to them talking. Like, it became so apparent that the editing was gonna be like that. I was like, that was weird. But this film decided to try to be this Moneyball or this Big Short thing where it's like this serious drama about this real scandal, and it just ended up being a bore fest. This movie is 2 hours long. It doesn't need to be 2 hours long. This should be like an hour and 50 or an hour and 40. It's just unnecessary. And like, talking about more negatives, I feel like Chris Evans is the most useless character in the world. And you know what's an interesting thing? That is actually true. It wants to be a Wolf of Wall Street drama or ripoff of pharmaceutical drug sales, but it comes off as a pale imitation. That's exactly what it feels like. And the worst part about it is that the movie feels like it's resolved, but as an audience, you're like, wait, what? What happened? It doesn't make sense. And I feel that's the problem. Now, make no mistake, this is a Netflix movie, so I mean, it's not like, oh, Netflix has done it again with a streak of bad movies. Like, well, Netflix is known for some bad movies. There's some good ones. There's some good ones. I haven't watched The Killer yet, and everybody says it's awesome, but I've watched Pain Hustlers. It wasn't good. And on a thumbs up, thumbs up. I forgot to mention the performances are actually pretty good. Chris Evans' character, totally forgettable. His performance is okay. Emily Blunt is good. Catherine O'Hara is good. Andy Garcia is good, but it's just a story that's disengaging, characters that I don't really care about, and a story that just feels so rushed. Thumbs down, D plus, 4 out of 10. All right, next up, Quiz Lady. This is a Hulu original starring Aquafina and Sandra Oh, and is about this woman that gets her dog stolen by this gang, and her mother is missing, and they go to Philadelphia to participate in a game show where Aquafina's character is like, I know every answer, I am smart, and I have been watching this show for years, and I am going to participate. And I thought this was a pretty good film. I would give this a thumbs up. It's a great comedy. The jokes sometimes are funny, sometimes they're not, and I feel like it does go a little bit overboard. But the chemistry between Sandra Oh and Aquafina is incredible. I absolutely love these two women. Aquafina is hilarious in everything she does, and I liked it. Will Ferrell is awesome, and all of that. A big speaking of that, a huge problem I have with this movie is that Jason Schwartzman is in this movie, and he has actually had a good year. I mean, he's been in Asteroid City, he's been the villain in Spider-Man and Across the Spider-Verse, and he was just featured in a Hunger Games movie. Obviously, I haven't seen that film, but his role as like the main villain or sort of a annoying villain was way too over the top and too stupid and silly that honestly this could have been a very straightforward film, but they're like, no, we have to have somebody that's like, kind of a show off on these shows and whatever. But uh, I enjoyed it. It's a definitely an interesting comedy, and it's a funny film. It's not going to win any awards, but similar formula. Yeah, you've seen it before, but it's a funny movie. It's an enjoyable. It's tightly paced. It's a good film. So thumbs up. I give it a B and a 7 out of 10. All right. With that out of the way, let's get into the final topic of review, and that is this. I don't watch a lot of SNL, but there's one segment of the show that I always love to watch on YouTube, and that is the Please Don't Destroy segment. They are hilarious. And recently, they released a new movie that was scheduled to come out on August 18th, but they delayed it to make it a Peacock original movie. And it's now being released on November 17th. And I just watched it yesterday. Now, I haven't seen the reviews yet, but after watching this movie, I had a great time with it. This is a very good film, a very good comedy. This might be my second favorite comedy of the year. That's how good it is. This movie was hilarious. It had a lot of funny jokes that I think stuck with me that are just great because the line delivery between these three young gentlemen is hilarious. It's straightforward and I think it works. Now, unfortunately, this is a Peacock original, so if you don't have Peacock, I don't think you can watch this movie or if you can pirate it, but I don't recommend pirating. Conan O'Brien makes an appearance in this movie. He's really good. I thought the girls in the movie, the two security guards, whatever their names are, I don't know who they are. They are awesome and funny too. Um, the main villain in the movie, or the twist and the villain that come towards the second half of the film, I thought, eh, it was kind of forgettable. Um, and the final fight between these characters, I thought was really weird. But I I enjoyed this movie. Like I said, on a thumbs up or thumbs down scenario, I would give this movie a thumbs up. I thought it was pretty good. And one where I would watch this movie again. It's hilarious, it's funny, and it's enjoyable. So I would give this a thumbs up. I'm actually gonna go really high on this one. I'm gonna give this a B plus, and I'm gonna go with an 8 out of 10. I'm gonna go with an 8. I really like this movie a lot. It's funny, it's hysterical, it's energetic, it knows what it is, and I just liked seeing these guys on the screen making jokes. It's hilarious. All right. And with that, to end our session for today, thank you to whoever joined Biffer Dabble the Hobbit. Thank you so much. As always, 2 o'clock on Mondays. Tune in every week at Monday at 2 o'clock. This has been the Western Star Movie Podcast, and I am signing off.